The overwhelming majority of the countries of the world are gathering once more at the United Nations General Assembly to urge the United States to end the blockade it has imposed on Cuba for more than 60 years. Our special correspondent in New York, Ais Garcia, has approaches some members of groups of Solidarity with Cuba present in New York. Let's listen to their opinions.
Hello, we are in UN, and at this time we are interviewing Terence Marryshow. The doctor is from the Solidarity and the Granada, Cuba Friendship Association. Could you tell us, Dr. Terence, why are you supporting Cuba against this blockade?
Okay. First of all, let me say that I am a product of Cuba. I studied in Cuba. I'm a medical doctor, graduating from Cuba. I have lived in Cuba and I've seen what the Cuban people have had to undergo over the last 60 years. And there's absolutely no reason for it. Absolutely no reason. Countries must have the right to determine their own destiny. They must have the right to determine which form of government they want to control their country, without being forced by other countries or powerful countries like the United States to change their course of development. The blockade has persisted for 60 years, since the beginning of the revolution in Cuba. And the overwhelming majority of the people of the world, represented in the United Nations, year after year have been calling for the end to that criminal economic blockade, because of the tremendous difficulties it has been causing for the Cuban people. More than 80% of the Cuban population do not know anything else but the blockade. They have lived under this blockade. And they have had to endure so many difficulties when it comes to achieving their goals, their objectives, because they just choose to be different, to be able to develop their countries as they see fit. Cuba is not a sponsor of terrorism. Far from that, Cuba has been a victim of terrorism. And only recently, there was an anniversary of the bombing of the Cubana Airlines off of Barbados, which is one of the first acts of terrorism perpetrated in this hemisphere on Cuba by agents of the United States. So Cuba is not a sponsor of terrorism. Far from that, Cuba has been one of the most humanitarian and philanthropic countries in the world. They have helped so many countries when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to providing valuable services to many, many countries all over the world, not to mention the role that they have played in the liberation of Southern Africa, South Africa in particular, Namibia, Angola, Mozambique. And all Cuba has done all over the world is to try to help. I always say, if there were more countries like Cuba, what a wonderful world we would have.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Terence Marryshow, for this declaration to Telesur TV. Thank you very much. We are back into Caracas, Venezuela.